When we think about the 10 plagues in the book of Exodus, we usually picture a series of terrible disasters, right? Water turning to blood, swarms of frogs, terrifying darkness. But what if they weren't just random acts of destruction? What if this was all a carefully planned cosmic showdown, a theological war waged by Yahweh against the entire pantheon of Egyptian gods? Let's break this down. Everything kicks off with this single question from Pharaoh. Now, you have to remember, Pharaoh is considered a god on earth. So when he says Yahweh, never heard of him, it's not just ignorance. It's a challenge. It's him throwing down a cosmic gauntlet. And basically, every plague that follows is Yahweh's direct, thundering answer, making sure that by the end of it all, Pharaoh and all of Egypt would know exactly who he is. Now, to really get what's going on here, you've got to understand this concept, Ma'at. Think of Ma'at as the operating system of the entire Egyptian universe. It was divine order, balance, truth, justice, everything. The sun rising, the Nile flooding, all of it was part of Ma'at. And guess whose job it was to maintain it? The Pharaoh. So when these plagues start attacking that order, it's not just causing chaos. It's a direct assault on the fabric of creation itself. And it makes Pharaoh look completely powerless. All right, so Yahweh's first move? It's a direct shot at the very things that keep Egypt alive and in order. It's almost like a process of decreation. Let's see how this plays out, starting with the absolute lifeblood of Egypt, the Nile River. You see, turning the Nile to blood wasn't just a gross inconvenience. For an Egyptian, it was pure theological horror. Why? Well, the Egyptian word for red, or blood, was also a term for evil, and it was directly linked to their vision of cosmic chaos, the serpent Apophis. So this first plague would have felt like powerful, dark magic, a divine curse signaling that the whole nation was being targeted for destruction. And this pattern just keeps going with the second plague, the frog, right? To the Egyptians, this was a sacred symbol of Heket, the goddess of fertility who was said to breathe life into people. So what does Yahweh do? He flips the script completely. He doesn't just make a ton of frogs, he turns a symbol of life into an overwhelming symbol of death. The whole land stank with rotting frog corpses. It was a graphic, smelly demonstration of who really had control over life and death, and it wasn't Heket. Okay, so the game is changing. This isn't just about attacking nature anymore. Now it becomes a direct, head-to-head showdown with Egypt's top spiritual experts. And at first, Pharaoh's magicians, the Hartamim, they seem like they can handle it. They replicate the blood, they summon even more frogs. But here's the thing. All they're doing is making the problem worse. They can't fix it. And then, bam, the third plague hits, the gnats. And their magic just stops. It hits a brick wall. They have nothing. And this right here? This is the moment everything changes. It's a total admission of defeat. Egypt's own experts are throwing in the towel. They're telling Pharaoh that they're not up against some rival magician from another country. They're facing a power that is on a completely different level. They're up against the divine. So he's beaten the magicians on the ground. Where do you go from there? Up. The assault now moves to the heavens, targeting the highest-ranking gods in the entire Egyptian pantheon. And, this would have tapped into a really deep-seated Egyptian fear. We know from ancient texts like this one, the Amos stele, that they were terrified of chaos raining down from the sky. So when the seventh plague hits, a storm of fire and ice, it's not just a freak weather event. It's a psychological weapon, playing on their absolute worst fears about the sky falling. And in the middle of all that chaos, you have to ask, where were their sky gods? What about Nut, the sky goddess herself? Or Shu, the guy whose whole job was literally to hold up the sky? Or Tefnut, the goddess of moisture? They were nowhere to be found. Their silence was deafening, and it was a clear statement that Yahweh had total authority over their turf. But then comes the ninth plague. And honestly, for a culture that worshipped the sun god as their supreme creator, this was the ultimate theological terror, a supernatural, oppressive darkness that you could feel, lasting for 3 straight days. This was a direct assault on their chief deity. And here's where it gets really clever. There's this incredible, subtle wordplay happening in the original Hebrew text. The word that Moses uses to warn Pharaoh about the evil that's coming is Ra, which just so happens to sound exactly like the name of Egypt's most powerful god, the sun god Ra. It's a brilliant, biting piece of rhetoric, basically equating their number one god with the very evil that's destroying them. For an Egyptian on the ground, the implication of this darkness was just devastating. Think about it. The sun, the source of all life, just doesn't rise. It's like their creator god Amun-Re has been defeated, maybe even killed. His kingdom of light and life was now a realm of death and judgment. The terror is hard for us to even imagine. So all of this builds and builds to the grand finale, the climax of the story. The final confrontation at the Sea of Reeds isn't just about an escape. It is the final verdict in this divine war. But to really get the power of this final scene, you need to know one last detail about Egyptian magical beliefs: the concept of being swallowed. This wasn't just about eating. In their magical texts, to be swallowed by the earth or creature meant you were magically annihilated, utterly, permanently wiped from existence. So when you read the victory song in Exodus after the army is drowned and it says the earth swallowed them, that's not just poetry. It's using the Egyptians' own magical language against them. It's a declaration of total, absolute, and final victory in the very terms they would have found most terrifying. And here is maybe the ultimate power move of the whole story. See, other cultures in the region actually worshipped the sea as a chaotic, powerful god you had to fight. But Yahweh? He doesn't fight the sea. He wields it. It's just a tool in his hand, a weapon he uses to execute his judgment. He's demonstrating that the very forces other nations worship as gods are just things that he commands. So when you look at it this way, the plagues weren't just about freeing a people. They were a systematic dismantling of an entire religious worldview, a demonstration on a cosmic scale to answer Pharaoh's question once and for all. Which leaves us with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? If the greatest battle in the Exodus story wasn't fought with swords and chariots, but with signs and beliefs, what does that tell us about the true battlefield of history?